Hello, my name is Spencer, and this is Real Television, and today we're going to be finishing up our talk about the Underworld Rise of the Lycans movie, and so we're just going to get right into it. If you're new here, this is the channel where we break down movies and see what it says emotionally, and just sort of uncovering the patterns of humanity that show itself within the emotions of certain characters and certain universes. Stuff like that. It's kind of hard to explain, but hopefully that paints enough of a picture. No pun intended for my Bob Ross t-shirt. But in light of the 18th protest back in October, I just wanted to make sure that I finished the video so that y'all can have a full explanation of what I think about that movie in regards to the symbolism within it. The other thing I wanted to let you guys know is that I finally put some merch up in case you guys want some original artwork / gothic type looking clothing. So I designed it myself and it's going through Printful, not sponsored, but it's on my Etsy shop. So if you want to get those, go ahead and check it out. I'll go ahead and put a link in the description for that. These are made to order, so as soon as you order it, Printful starts getting to work on your shirt, and so they will send it to you. And I gave you a couple of options, one with a big front versus one with a big back picture, so it just depends on what your preference is, and it will let me know what designs you guys prefer in the future if you decide to purchase one. I will be adding more things there, such as stickers and other shirts and stuff like that, but for now I'm only going to be sticking with shirts and stickers, and then you guys can let me know which ones you end up wanting more of, and I can get to work on those. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into it. This right here is the part of the story where he crosses the first threshold, because before he hears the call to adventure in the sense of he sees what's happening with the other Lycans and he's being asked if he's on the same side, and then he refuses the call by answering back, no, they're just animals, right? Whereas he goes out there and he commits to the adventure because he has no other choice. He knows that if he doesn't do something, all of these people will be massacred, including himself and Sonia. So he does the unthinkable and stands up, and the vampires don't like that because he got out of the restraints, he got out of the shackles that he was put in. And so when people stand out of place, it signals to the system that, hey, they're going to be a problem, they're going to give hope to other people, and we have to contain it, which is why Victor does what he does later. So not only are we at the 5th step in the hero's journey, we're also learning a lot about what being a hero means today. So this part gives me goosebumps because I really connect with this character, not only because he's a werewolf, because I think they're cool, but also because I feel like I'm screaming into the void trying to get people to stop and think for a second on either side, and how we're just attacking each other, and it's just going to continue on, and unless somebody stands up and says something, that there's another way that we could do this. And it's much less painful on the societal level, I would say, because as soon as we start realizing our own faults and we see it in other people, we can then start helping other people see it too, and our strengths. It's not just faults. We can start seeing each other as human. We can start healing and helping each other. And of course, this is all philosophical pretty much, but also spiritual for me. And not everybody's going to agree with that, which is the beautiful thing. But I'm looking for those who agree that there could be another way, and that they want to get past their prejudices on either side. Because like I said in previous videos, I was conservative for a long time, considering I grew up Mormon and thought I was cis and straight. So having learned a lot of things over the years and how that view is wrong for me personally, I have only ever sought to help other people wake up to that fact, as far as that there could be another way, but we're all choosing not to. And this is the gentlest way that I could think of. And just like Lucian here, he's screaming, he's literally roaring at those other werewolves to stop. He could keep attacking like he was before, but he shows who he truly is, and that scares people. Just like in society, when people are authentic, it scares people and makes people question, am I doing the right thing? Should I be doing something else? Are they right? Am I actually hurting people by continuing to do this? That kind of thing. And so I'm not saying I'm gonna save the world. I'm just saying, like, I want to help people see a new perspective with everything that they watch every single time, and pay attention and be mindful of their thoughts. And so when we have control more of what is coming into our minds, we then are able to project that into society. The importance of having control over our own minds is essential to this working. And controlling our own minds doesn't mean that we have to be robotic. That does not mean that we have to be constantly afraid of calling somebody the wrong thing or constantly afraid of change. in general. What I am saying is that we need to be prepared for change, and to be prepared is to be knowledgeable. And preparation also means protection, because if we know about something and somebody tries to change that fact, we know that they aren't telling the truth. At least that's how I see it, and I could be completely wrong. But we have to be like Lucian and defend that in the gentlest way possible until it doesn't work that way. And then we need to take action with the least amount of violence as possible, for lack of a better word. And we only escalate that if it's absolutely needed, so to speak, like when it comes to like the political games that people play, for example, for wars and whatnot. I'm not saying that we should ever be violent as a people unless it's absolutely necessary, like they did in the French Revolution, but I'm just saying the truth is always going to set you free, like it did for me. It might not seem like I'm free, but in all honesty, everything that I am is against the norm. I'm not normal according to people who are cis, white, straight, and heterosexual, or straight, cis, white, straight, whatever. You know what I mean? I'm not somebody who fits the norms, is what I'm trying to say. Not anymore. And that doesn't mean that you have to be. That just means that you have to be open to change. This part just makes me think of how people who don't know those in minority groups or know how they function or how they live life, they are afraid of them only through the stories they hear. Just like this character, this human character tells Lucian, because Lucian asks, are you afraid of them? The wolves who cannot change back. And he said yes. And then he asked, are you afraid of me? And he said yes, hesitantly. And Lucian says, well, don't be, because I don't bite much. And that is what people will understand when they start talking to trans people or gay people. They'll start to understand who we are and how we live. And all we want is to be living our lives, just like you. And they'll see that plight that we're up against and eventually come to terms with, yes, you do have to treat us like humans, because we are, and that we have to protect each other, no matter who we are or what we are. And that goes for anything else. If you're afraid of it, maybe you should look into it, at least learn a little bit about it before you make your judgments. You know, it's something that we have to start doing, is start trying to understand each other on some level. Start somewhere. Start today. Just do that. Do one thing that you're afraid of. For example, if you're afraid of trans people, or you think that something is true, such as, people transing your kids, look it up from reputable sources, like you used to do in English class for your essays. Look for those reputable sources and make sure that the studies that you look at didn't fail in some way, or didn't do things ethically, or whatever you want to call it. Because sometimes those studies are wrong and they've been disproven by other studies. So it's important to make sure that what you're looking at is true. So yeah, moving on. So this part right here where the human nobles have come and given their silver and everything, and apparently it's not enough. So Victor says, I'm going to take half your silver mine for compensation. And the human gets upset, and he says that the wolves are at their door too, so why should he pay tribute? And it's almost like saying, well, I say the truth of things because you guys are afraid of change. You guys are afraid of change, and I see the chaos that you can't control. So why should I keep paying tribute to people who can't protect me, or won't in this case? And that is also something that can show up in politics, but it can also show up in friendships, relationships, stuff like that. Not that you have to pay tribute to anybody, but just the idea that you have to give someone respect just because they ask you to. That's not healthy. That's not a healthy dynamic to have. And there's a give and take in a relationship, and there's also give and take in friendships, and it has to be equal, or at least fairly equal, for it to feel stable. And when you base that foundation of trust on lies or deceit or little white lies, whatever you want to call it, it's going to break when it's challenged under scrutiny of any sort. That could be scrutiny of like, oh, well, I cleaned up this in the apartment today, so why didn't you do it last week when you said you would do it? That kind of thing in the roommate situation or whatever. But the idea here is to always search for the truth and point it out when you can. But in this case, you want to do it safely. You don't want to be in a room full of vampires when that happens. So obviously there's no real vampires, but I'm just saying that, you want to be in a safe place when that happens. So you just got to be sure that the people that you're talking to and exposing the truth to are able to take it in a rational way, so to speak. And it also speaks to the fact that he sees that they don't have true control, and that they are using the wolves as protectors against the other wolves too. But they have more protection than the humans do, and they don't want to give out that protection. Otherwise it would expose the secret, which is using other people as pawns, sort of how government does that now with minorities. They may be getting all of this money and status, but what is all of that compared to truth? Because you have to have all of these schemes and keeping track of all those schemes and all those lies that you've said. Otherwise, you'll be caught. And who would want to live a life where you're constantly looking over your shoulder or afraid somebody's going to find out that you've been lying this whole time, or using the power for money solely? But of course, I'm sort of rambling on this part, but that's just what it made me think of. And this scene right here, I feel like a lot of people are going through right now, being disenchanted with politics, the American dream, and all of the work that they've put into their lives, only to find that it's still not enough, and how people just get fed up with being given the short end of the stick all the time, and realizing what's truly wrong with society and where all this money is going, and having to fight amongst ourselves, essentially, to have any sort of stability, fighting amongst ourselves for jobs, for relationships, for friendships, for alone time, for time to have a little bit of creativity, whether that's reading a book or painting a picture or whatever. Like, a lot of us are so stressed out for money that we stretch our time out and burn ourselves out just trying to make ends meet, you know? And in this scene, Lucian's had enough of how he's been treated. He's even said in this line here that he's envied them, he's trained with them, and he's tired of playing by the rules. And sometimes not playing by the rules requires doing unconventional things. And unconventional things could mean starting your own business. It could also mean making money with art. It could also mean making friends with people you never thought you would. You have to start thinking outside the box that you were given and told you have to stay in that box. But by whom and for what? Constant stress and worry, where there's no time to even plan for good things other than maybe birthdays in the family or little trips to the park and all of that, which is good. It's good to get outside, but it's more so seeing the humanity in each other and seeing that we are not animals, just like he says here. We're not meant to live in scarcity like we've been forced to do for the past, 30, 40 years, I would say. Honestly, since the Reagan era. But this mirrors real life. Even though we're using werewolves and vampires as the archetypes, it still says something. It's not just a cool story, but it can be only a cool story if you just want to skirt around the topics, or if you want to just skim the surface level of things, which is fine. It's all fun. But at the same time, if you ever want to change your life or understand yourself on a better level, it's good to dissect things like this so that you can understand why these subjects and archetypes are so cool to you, or these archetypes are ones that you're drawn to. Like, for example, I love werewolves more than I do vampires, and so this story is really cool to me, especially with the fact that you can eventually control it. Finding that balance within yourself intrigues me, because it reminds me of my own spiritual journey, where you have to find this balance within yourself to know that you're capable of doing something, and that you're capable of creating a world for yourself, this reality for yourself in your mind, that you can do anything and nobody's going to tell you shit. And I'm working through that right now as I'm recording, and it's frustrating as fuck. I get that. I really do. But at the same time, you have to do what you need to do in order to survive. And if that's what it takes is for you to get angry and upset at your situation, then get angry, get upset. Do the things that you said you would never do. Like, for example, I'm having to think outside the box. I can't seem to land a job right now, so I'm trying to figure out ways to make more money so that I can continue doing this and continue keeping my medications and, stuff like that. But I would rather do this than go back to work. So for me, picking my own schedule, doing deliveries, that's probably going to be the best bet for me right now. You have to start thinking outside the box, like I said. So if you don't want to work for someone anymore, figure out what your passion is and find jobs that will help you do that. Yes, it'll be uncomfortable for a while. And yes, it'll be annoying, frustrating at times, but you should never give up, ever. And you have to be brave enough to do it so that others can start doing it too. Because what that leads to is a new society overall, if it happens fast enough. Like, if you like growing vegetables, do that. Go to the local farmer's market and sell your stuff. Or just put an ad out on Facebook or Instagram or something and be like, hey, fresh fruit or fresh vegetables, blah, 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 sell your stuff. Like, find your passion and go with it. Just figure out what you need to do to get it going, just like I'm doing it. Anyway, moving on. Now, continuing on what I just said, this part is also in the 6th step and the 7th step of the story elements, the hero's journey. So it's the initiation area. So like he just defended Sonya by taking off his collar and saving her life along with all the people in the caravan. So that was number 6, which is tests, allies, and enemies. So he's realized who the real enemy is. He's also gone through a test of if he's going to be willing to defend people that he loves, and he did that, but with consequences because it revealed the enemies, and he has no allies anymore like he thought he did, other than those who are also trapped, that are also Lycans, like him. So now, step 7, which is the approach to the inmost cave, he's preparing for the worst. He's preparing to revolutionize those that are trapped, like him, so that he can finally be free. But most importantly, he wants to free others too. And honestly, it could also be the 8th step in the hero's journey as well, because it's the ordeal. He has to face the greatest fear and confronts the most difficult trial, according to Google. So the most difficult trial is being seen as an animal. He has done all this work, and yet he's still treated like a mongrel. And so the next step is to escape. So in this scene, he's using the elements fire and water. So like the passion, creation, destruction, transformation. He's gone through that transformation inside, and he has the emotions that are necessary to start utilizing the element of air, which is intellect, communication, and truth. And he's doing that right now. He's using his voice. He's using the air in his lungs to voice his opinion and what should be done next, which is he's basically calling in the earth element, the stability, the practicality, and manifestation. So he's wanting that stability of a good life where he doesn't have to live for other people. He wants to live for himself as he is, and he wants that for other people. And so when all of these come together, you have the element of spirit, which is just the human spirit, the will and the force within. So that's going to culminate in the climax of this. And I feel like that is true with all stories. At some point, they all collect the elements together to create this wonderful, beautiful climax to a story. And depending on how those elements are utilized, it can be really awesome, or it can really fall flat. So it really just depends. It's like Thanos and his glove with all the stones that he's collected. You have to have all of those to have a good story. This part right here, it's intriguing to me because it's Victor saying to this human, "Don't you realize what I'm giving you is a gift?" And he says, "No, it's a curse." And he's partially right, because in this universe, being one of those means being controlled. And like I said before, with the allegory of werewolves and wolves, it's like being given all this power and never being able to use it. So like, for example, in the real world, this could be, having to work full-time jobs just to make ends meet and never having time to create the artwork that you want. Or working full-time in a physically demanding job, but you want to volunteer for those who are homeless, but you never end up having enough energy to do so. And so you always put it off. All of this good work that can be done is ruined by the fact that we have all this power, but we have nothing to show for it because of the systems that we're in. And the systems that we're in now are vampiric in nature, and it takes a lot of energy to be continued. Hence, the vampirism is also a metaphor for capitalism, in my opinion. At least uncontrolled capitalism. Whereas, regulated capitalism can be utilized, but that would require, if you stay with the metaphor, releasing the Lycans, letting our natural humanity show for what it is, which is something that you can see in children, something that shows, hey, I actually really love my fellow human beings. Let's do something about that. Let's make the world a better place. Sort of like the Zootopia type of thing, except more realistic. It's just something to think about how, yes, life is a gift, but it can be a curse, but only if you let it. And sometimes that requires, thinking outside the box, like I said, and doing unconventional things that the system probably won't like, but we have to defend each other. We have to uplift each other. We have to provide community for each other in order for that to continue and not die off, sort of like the protests that we've been doing. It's been getting bigger and bigger, more momentum and more momentum every time we have one. And it's making certain people nervous, which is sort of the point, but it's also to show that, we the people won't be chained. We won't be corralled. and we won't be fearful of bullies and tyrants and kings and all that. Sort of how this human here is doing it. But he's on his own, and so it's hard to keep that going. And so it stops. And so he succumbs to the bite. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys, and it's easy to follow along. But sometimes I can't tell if it's going to be easy for people to understand what I'm talking about, just because half the time I feel like I'm channeling this. So from some other ether in the spiritual realm, I don't know. But that's what I think. Moving on. This part right here where the human finally figures out why they turned them into Lycans, like Lucian, and he says he would rather die first. And I can understand the sentiment behind that, because I'd rather work for myself than anybody else when it comes to working. But basically, he's told that Victor is using them as his own protection. And like I said earlier, I'm just reiterating for the fact of the matter. And it's literally what governments and systems do to protect themselves. They create the problem when it wasn't a problem in the first place. And to do that, they use minorities and paint them to be the bad guys, when in actuality, those are the people you should be listening to. And it's like my book series that I'm writing. I call it the #unwilling bodyguard, which encompasses all minorities. It's not limited to one person. It's the dehumanization of humanity and how that's used as upon a bodyguard, a problem to be fixed, and a solution, even if it's a fake one. It's all of those things combined, and they utilize it to a point that it's really scary for those of us in the minority group, like myself. You know, I'm having to figure out how to ration my last bottle of testosterone so that I can earn more money and keep going, because I realize that that helps me mentally. But that's just one example, and it's up to you to figure out what the rest of those are by doing research, because not everybody can be a teacher of all the things that's wrong, not even me. So look up people who are disabled or who have health issues that can't work a normal job. Or maybe like, you know, other trans people who have made a name for themselves online, or sell clothes because they can't find a job anywhere else. You have to get creative in order to live the life that you want. And we have to all start doing that together in order to change the system that we're in, I would say. I don't know how we would do that, but it's something to think about and something to talk about in our communities, and come together and figure out, okay, this is what we're going to do, or present solutions, and we all talk about it, because I think that would be far better of a solution than what we have right now. But of course, none of this is going to be an easy solution. It can't be like Thanos' snap to the point where it can just happen like that. It's something that we all have to consciously think about and consciously interact with the world in a way that's going to change it for everyone. And at this point, I think the pendulum is probably going to swing so far backward that we're actually going to get the healthcare that we deserve. And we're also going to get all the things that we said were going to be good for us, because enough people woke up because of what's happening now. And that's how we have to kind of think of the circumstances now. It's our stepping stone to a better life, as long as we continue to fight for it. And this is what I can do right now. I'm just voicing my opinion and putting it out into the world and showing people another way. Albeit it's philosophical, but philosophers have always changed the world in one way or another, I would say. The thing about this scene right here is the idea of revolution. And I'm not advocating for any sort of revolution unless it happens organically on its own. But what I'm saying here is that a lot of the times revolution can happen intellectually first, just like he's been talking to all of the other Lycans just before they started all to get out of their cages here. But the idea of freedom can be painted several different ways. But the first way is to start utilizing our individual talents and doing something with them. So if you like to paint and you want to make a statement, maybe start doing something about the system, or what should change, or just making your voice known on something that you're passionate about. And when we all start talking about that online, it cannot be ignored. A lot of this revolution, if you want to call it that, can be boiled down to morals, and it can also be boiled down to ideas. And a lot of the times, ideas are far more potent than anything that could happen in the physical, because ideas can either pollute the mind or it can make the mind grow. It's your choice, because what you involve yourself with ultimately affects how you view the world and those around you. So it's best to think not only for yourself, like Lucian, but also those around you who could also benefit from that freedom that you're beginning to utilize. And I'm not saying that revolution or civil wars or wars in general should ever not be fought. I'm just saying that there's a time and a place, and there's also a reason usually given. Sometimes not the best reasons, but I want to be really careful what I say in this section. But what I want for people, and the basis of this channel, is to start thinking like this, is to plant the seed in people's minds that watch, that there is another way, like I said before. But the first thing that they have to do is change the ideas that are in their mind. Cultivate the garden, pull the weeds, get them out of there. Start understanding how the world really works, or could work in this case. But only if you choose to, because you can, like he said, choose to stay and serve them. You can choose to stay in a system that makes you feel like shit, or you can choose a better way. And that way is to help each other, keep each other safe, help each other understand, help each other find the truth. Even though that can be very frustrating, I get it. But we have to find the ones that are on the fence and can't make heads or tails of a lot of it, and give them concrete proof and answers that they've been looking for, so that they can compare it to the other side and say, actually, you know what, this one sounds a lot better. But again, they have to have the wit and the knowledge in order to do that. And so they have to figure out and compare the information first, like I said. But again, it's their choice. Freedom or scarcity. Scarcity or abundance in a different form. Not the abundance that capitalism promises, but it could work out that way with the abundance side as well, because the energy speaks. What you put into something, it speaks to the people who watch it. And I hope it's been speaking to you at this point. Otherwise, you wouldn't be at this point in the video. But I hope that what I'm saying is reaching somebody out there. And hopefully, it changes your mind about certain things, or makes you think a little bit more, or reveals something about you. Because what I want to say here is that certain people on the right would rather have us like these Lycans, working for them, making them more money, when in fact their job description demands the opposite. Whether that's the right or the left, it doesn't matter. But right now, the ones that are in the spotlight are the ones typically on the right. That should say something about it. That should show where their heart is and where their desires are headed, and what ideas are polluting their minds in order for that to work, and who would have to pay the price, and what are you willing to do about it? Those are the questions you should ask. Interestingly enough, this scene with all the spears coming through, shooting at them, I looked up the negative meaning of a spear, because I believe I explained it earlier with what the good meanings are of a spear. But in this sense, these spears show this. Quote, negatively, a spear may reflect unsophisticated behavior that is intentionally trying to quickly attack someone, purposely trying to hurt or fail someone with their own stupidity, feeling that someone in your life is intentionally trying to embarrass you or challenge you with a primitive need to prove themselves, your own attempt to intentionally fail or embarrass someone, ignorant, intentional attacks. It could also mean a quick response or insults or attacks that are intentionally meant to embarrass you. Another thing to keep in mind about spears is this. To dream of resisting a spear attack may reflect feelings of requiring strong willpower or focus to avoid looking stupid, feeling the need to avoid someone, intentionally trying to fail or embarrass you with something ignorant. So all three of those came from the same page about what it means to dream of a spear. I know that this isn't a dream, this is a movie, but the meaning still applies to what I'm trying to say. So with spears, if you think about it, it's these huge, powerful spears that hurl through the air through those big ballistas, I think that's how you say it. And when they're hurled at you, it feels like you can't do anything. And it's true. You can't do a whole lot with only a few people. It's like the system throwing these accusations at certain minorities and making people believe that you're the problem. Ultimately trying to make you feel embarrassed or powerless or angry so that you do something so it justifies what they're doing. So the only thing you can do is remove yourself from it, as far as removing your energy from it and trying to help those who actually want to understand what it means to be a specific minority, such as disabled or trans or gay or black, brown, whatever you want to do, or whatever category they put you in. You have to have that willpower to keep going, no matter what, because you know it's right. In your heart of hearts, that's what you want people to understand about you, right? That you mean no harm, that you actually do need help, depending on who you are, like disability checks and whatnot. And we have to help each other, whether that's through GoFundMe pages or supporting people by watching content. That's only a few ways that could help. Now, this part is where he's finally got the earth element in the story, the stability, practicality, and manifestation energy in the story. And he's just gotten to the point where he's waiting for Sonya to meet him, and he sees the wall where all of the other Lycans are, the ones who can't change to human form. And this part is basically when we need to start looking to the past for answers, to know how we got to a certain place, to look back and see how far we've come and how much more we have to do historically. But that can also mean individually for ourselves, and see how far we've come in our own lives, how much we've changed, how much we've put up with, or who in our lives has either let us down or built us up. And then change it. Change whatever it is that you need in your life in order to have the support that you need and the stability that is required for you, and work to manifest that. And manifestation can be spiritual, but it can also be of the world in a sense, because you have people that can support you. You have social media at your disposal. You have other people who think like you that might support your work, stuff like that. But it is important to remember where we came from, especially if you're a influencer or a gamer that people look up to online, or a political commentator, whatever it is. Remember why you did it. Remember why you started. And that's what I'm having to do now too. And Spirit is using these movies that I intuitively pick to show me this information that I'm giving you. I have to remember where I came from, so that when I do finally skyrocket toward popularity, that I don't forget where I came from and why I started, and not letting the money or the fame or whatever ends up happening get to my head. Because I've heard lots of people online recently say that people who are big now are not popular anymore simply because they've let the money get to their head. They've let the popularity get to their head, and they think that they're untouchable.
Should I divulge how I truly lost my powers? It was love. You see, when dear sweet Lily Potter gave her life for her only son, she provided the ultimate protection. I could not touch him. It was old magic, something I should have foreseen. But no matter, things have changed. I can touch you now.
You can't touch this.
Because they don't realize that if they say one bad thing, it could be detrimental to their career. So we have to kind of act like we're influencers of our own lives in a sense, and do things for the right reasons, you know, with logic and creativity in mind. Because the future that I see is one based on fact, for one, and two, creativity is the most revered, because creativity can get you out of a lot of things, a lot of bad situations, a lot of negative situations, but only if you have the tenacity to keep going. And sometimes looking back to the past means using that past for your benefit. Just like Lucian is doing here, he goes in and sees all of these other Lycans and attempts to get them to do the work with him. Sometimes that means using the truth of the past and showing people what life used to be like. For example, there was an episode, I think it was on MASH, or I think it was actually on Star Trek or something like that, where there was a trans character, and it was a simple interaction where the big guy with the chevrons on his forehead, I forget what he is, but I think he's a Klingon or something, but he comes up to this person and she says, "Oh, I'm so-and-so now," because he talks to her with her old name, and she says, "Oh, I'm this thou," and he says it again but with her new name. It's an easy small interaction, small correction to someone's life, and they continue on after that. There's nothing to be embarrassed or ashamed about. And how that used to be okay on TV, and now we've gotten to this point where people flip out over a trans character in a show that ended 3 years ago. If you know what I'm talking about. If you know, you know. But what I'm saying is that these innocent things from the past that we took for granted, we now have to fight for them again. And sometimes using the past like that can help, where we see what has gone wrong and we start having to show what it used to be like before all this craziness happened, and how we can avoid this type of future again if we look to the past. It's like that scene in Wicked, the first part, where Dr. Dillamond says something about how the past is how we see where we are or how we got to where we are. But he basically says that in that scene before he flips the board over and it says that animals should be seen and not heard. But that's what it makes me think of, is the past and how we can utilize that. Even if it looks otherworldly or something that we don't understand how it used to really be like, there are certain aspects of the past that we can use to our advantage to show how things used to be between human to human, such as kids being able to go play outside with their neighbors. And now we hardly ever see that because we don't trust each other. And it's for good reason, but it's also overprotective in my opinion. But we don't have the time to take precautions or teach people, or kids in this case, I suppose, what to look out for. We don't have time to meet the neighbors or their parents to gauge if they're okay to hang around. We don't have time to research anymore because we're too busy trying to keep a roof over our heads or food on the table. This is why remembering the past is so important, not only for ourselves and how far we've come, but also politically and systematically as far as our systems that we live in every single day. This scene right here where Victor says they weave their way into our world, or they worm their way into our world, and he's talking about emotions, and he's putting up this facade of caring about what she thinks, because he's never cared about what she thinks before, which is why she's sort of gotten away with a lot of things. Or maybe he cared too much, depending on your perspective. But in this case, what I'm talking about is systems know that emotions can be strong, and they use it to their advantage. They make us feel things so that they push us into directions that they want us to go, such as lower wages, and they want us to work twice as hard so that the millionaire buddies that they have get more money through tax breaks and stuff like that. But who pays the price for that? We can't just create money, but that's another, if you saw my Call to Humanity video about the economy, you'll understand what I'm talking about here. But the idea that he's using her own emotions against her just to make sure that she didn't betray him too is telling. This right here, I would say, is utilizing water, but in the iciest way possible. The emotion, the intuition, and connection. He's basically trying to cater to Sonia, who embodies the air quality, which is intellect, communication, and truth. But she's also using the element of fire because she's passionate, she's creative, she is transforming in her own way in what she thinks about how life is between vampires and Lycans. And she would seek to destroy what hurts those she loves, but not in a way that would be destructive in the way for benefiting for more than just herself. So she still has that tendency as a vampire to think only for herself and Lucian, but also for her father. She doesn't care about anybody else. Until it affects her, she doesn't do anything, which is like a lot of people who don't understand what's going on and the severity of it right now. They won't change or they won't wake up until it affects them personally. And even then, it takes a family member being affected for them to wake up. And the fact that he says that we forget the travesty of emotions and how fickle they can be, essentially. He doesn't say fickle, but I added that in because that's basically what he's saying here. But the idea that emotions are the problem and attachment is a detriment. It is to a point if you're overly attached. But if you have that healthy detachment from things that you can't control and attachment to those who you love, emotions are never a bad thing. Almost never, unless it's like unprincipled anger or, indulging too much in emotional manipulation or whatever you want to call it. But the idea here is that the manipulation that he's displaying here is sinister, I would say, because that's, like I said before, what systems do. They put out this message of, oh, I care so much about this and da-da-da-da-da, but it's still putting the blame on somebody else and who the problem is, rather than fixing the problem in the system. And we've known this for a long time, at least those of us who have been paying attention to what is being said politically. But we also have to be careful of this type of dynamic in families or friendships, because those are just as dangerous, especially in relationships, romantic relationships. This just makes me think about all of those conservative families that when they find out their kid is gay or trans, they feel like it's an immediate betrayal to them. And he literally says that here. He says, I loved you more than anything. You betrayed me, blah, blah, blah. And that's the type of mindset that we need to get away from. Because first of all, if you're going to have kids, you have to be okay with any outcome. That can include Down syndrome, that can include being gay, trans, autistic, whatever else, because humanity is this dimorphous, diversity-esque creature. We are all diverse creatures, even in our own ways. And for you to sit here and think of the ideal way and that be the only way is a travesty in itself, in my opinion. The idea that your way or the highway is the only way is very limiting to not only yourself, but also your kid. Because as soon as they step out of line, they start disappointing you. And then you start feeling like they need to be reprimanded because of that. It's literally not their fault. They're just being themselves. But apparently being themselves in a certain way is not okay. And in this case, she has fallen for somebody who, if we're following the symbolism of what I'm talking about here, she fell for somebody who's a liberal or a leftist. And that is not okay for some conservative families. I'm just going to say that right up at the top of things. And unfortunately, that does put a wedge in their family, and she feels like she's having to choose between one or the other, because she does love both, but one is easier to be with. And I'm not even talking about like the sexual aspect at this point. I'm talking about one is easier to be with, period, and be herself. Lucian helps pull out that wild side of her that cares, pulls out the emotions, helps her feel them fully, whereas her father teaches her to push that away. Don't like to ignore her feelings about anything, to think only logically, which is impossible for most people. So to limit someone's capability and how they live their life is purely selfish to limit them in that way, because that only ends up pushing them away when they get the first chance. They want to be away from some people that like that. They want to be away from the people who don't let themselves be free and express themselves the way that makes them feel comfortable. And families like that tend to have their own problems along with it. And I say that from experience because of my own family. Like I said in my previous videos, if you want to know more about that, you can watch my previous videos where I talk a little bit more about what I've been through. But it's like the corset she's wearing. It's like you're not allowed to go outside the bounds of what I've set for you. It's suffocating, and you try to be yourself within those bounds. It ends up restricting your movement. It feels like you're a hermit crab that's grown too big for its shell, and you have to do something about it. And unfortunately, doing something about it means upsetting those closest to you. And sometimes that can result in this type of reaction, where it's an ultimate betrayal, or you need to be gotten rid of, or kicked out, whatever. Or even worse, I would say, is being told you have to go to conversion therapy, which thank God I've never had to do. But I've heard horror stories about it, and I never want to ever experience that. And my heart goes out to those who've had to have that happen. But it's not only limited to what I'm talking about here. It's not only limited to being gay or trans. This is also just being in a family dynamic where it does not allow you to be yourself, or you have no privacy, or you have to be sneaky about what you do or what you say and what you leave out. That is a really difficult life to live. I could not imagine. But that's what this scene makes me think of, and how we have to be better than who raised us. If you have kids, of course. I personally don't want kids, not because I couldn't handle them, but I prefer a life where I can totally be free. And it is noble to have kids. That's okay. I'm not saying having kids is bad. What I am saying is that I prefer to have my autonomy in what I do and when I do it. But with that being said, we have to be the change that we want to see in the world, no matter what aspect it is. Because when we allow that to happen, it allows for the next generation to use us as an example of what that could look like. And then they expound upon that, as long as you're there to teach them what the truth is and how to spot lies and manipulation, especially in politics, but also in friendships and family dynamics and romantic relationships, whatever the case may be. And that's why I feel like parenting is a really hard job. I get that. But I'd prefer to be a pet parent so that I can help push these types of messages out for other people, because that time without kids gives me this chance to voice things that might actually help people. Just saying. This scene right here where Lucian comes back to the camp and says that he's not seen a sign of Sonia, and neither have people in camp. And this guy behind him comes up and says, well, with respect, she's not one of us. And then Lucian says, well, she's the one that helped us all get out. And it's this us versus them dynamic that needs to go, because we need to start seeing each other as humans first. So that purple revolution that happened on TikTok, that's not the real purple revolution, because the real revolution, in my opinion, is coming together and seeing each other as humans, and with humans with needs that need to be met. And in order to do that, we have to band together and demand it. No more us versus them, no more leftist, liberal, no more center right or right leaning, whatever you want to call it. As long as it's not alt-right, It's all of us that has to limit those who are on the alt-right pipeline and call out that bigotry and ignorance when it comes up. Like this, like Lucian said to this man, and realize that we will need help from other people to get through this together. And in order to do that, we have to put aside our differences. And I know a lot of people will, hem and haw about that. But at the same time, it's not about putting all of our differences aside. It's about realizing that we're all human, for one, and you don't have to forgive them for what they did, which is voting for somebody who could be detrimental to all of us and is detrimental to all of us, in my opinion. So if you're asking if I'm asking you to forgive them, no, I'm not asking you to forgive. What I'm asking you to do is to see their humanity first, plain and simple. Even if it's an uneasy alliance, it's worth it in the end. As long as we try to inform them if they want to be informed. We have to find the ones that want to be informed and are capable of changing so that we can get the future that we want. And like I said before, sometimes that means doing unconventional things. Even if they're uncomfortable, or even if it seems weird, why not give it a shot and see what happens? You have to be brave enough to give someone the benefit of the doubt first. Try to have that conversation with somebody. And if they start hurling, threats or slurs, then you can decide for yourself if you want to stop interacting with them. But change takes all of us, is what I'm saying. But moving on. This part right here angers me because Victor's saying, how dare you raise your hand to me? I'm your father. And yet he's sitting here doing all of this to them and planning on killing them both. Like, what the hell? It's like I was talking about before with, not having kids if you're not going to allow them to be human and have their own way of life and be themselves. It's the hypocrisy in do what I say, but not like that, kind of thing. Drives me nuts. But with Lucian and Sonya fighting together, that is what we need to do. We need to find the balance between each other, whatever that might mean, so that we can bring balance to our system again and rid it of this corruption on all fronts. How we do that, I don't know. But I would say that would be the start, is to at least acknowledge that we all need to come together and get rid of the corruption. And you can see that when their words don't match their actions on who that might be, who doesn't follow through. And use that sword of truth, the symbolic sword of truth, and cut through the bullshit. Get to the point. Bring them to trial if you have to, but limit it and show them the error of their ways in a way that they'll understand, if you can. And if that means in a family dynamic, if that means removing yourself from the family and going no contact, that's what it means, unfortunately. And sometimes that means, yes, standing up for yourself and seeing the hypocrisy happen in front of your eyes. And she even says right here, I don't want to defeat you. I just want you to see me, is basically what she's saying. She wants to be seen and she wants to be heard. She wants to be supported, but he is incapable of that. And just like the system is incapable right now of seeing the bigger issue, of seeing the error of their ways. Or maybe they are, and they're trying to hide their fear because they know that emotions are weakness, according to them. It's funny how the ones that say facts over feelings get real upset when you call them out for being really emotional. I'm not mincing words there. That could be anybody. It doesn't have to be only conservatives. It could also be people in your family or your friends or your loved ones, like a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a non-binary person that you're dating, whoever it is. Sometimes trying to get through to them, even when you explain I'm not trying to be rude or I'm not trying to make you feel like shit, it still triggers their emotional response and they have no idea how to control those in a good way. They don't know how to hold those emotions in a healthy way. And so they lash out. And here Victor is telling her, even if you kill me, it's not going to save your precious Lucian or whatever. And it's like threatening to hurt a minority in order to control the masses. And so they threaten them and then they take away whatever rights they have anyway if you don't stand up. So might as well stand up. Not only for those who are in the target, not only for those in the crosshairs, but for you too, because it will eventually get to you. You're just further down the list when it comes to the system we have right now. You don't realize the privilege that you have not being a minority like Sonya. You don't realize the privilege of where you sit in the council. And you have to use it in a way that supports everyone, not just yourself. You have to realize the pitfalls of how we got here in order to wield that sword of truth. This scene right here, Lucian blames himself for leaving in the first place, and Sonya repeats the words that he said to her at the beginning of the movie, then you would not be who you are. That's exactly what we have to do. We have to love each other for who we are right now and give ourselves the benefit of the doubt that we will change one day, or that we have the capability to do so. And if they don't, then we keep holding them accountable for what they're saying or doing or whatever. We have to keep supporting each other, especially mentally in these times, because it's rough out here, as any other country can see from the outside. And for those that are watching that have gotten to this point, however rare that might be, have you tried looking up what other people are saying outside of the country? Have you noticed that it's impossible to find a source that is outside of the country, or nearly impossible, without some sort of leaning to the right, like the BBC or other channels from other countries that are like the BBC, or like the Washington Post here in America? Washington Post is owned by the CEO of Amazon. We live in an oligarchy. They control all of our media unless we start to create it ourselves, like I'm doing here. I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to provide that alternative that you've probably been looking for your whole life, and those on the left have probably been looking for. At least that's what I've come to understand, that this is that important. So, like I said, start changing little by little for yourself, no matter who you are listening to this or watching this, and figure out what you need to do to have the life that you want. You have to start embodying the person that you want to be. So if you want to be somebody who helps people, go out and start volunteering, or start doing something like this, like I'm doing. But find your own niche, like make it your own. Do what you can to support each other, even if you feel alone in the pursuit of it, like I do right now. But I'd rather it be that way, because I'd rather have true people that actually care about me around me, wouldn't you? Something to think about. Moving on. Sonia even says right here that the choices that she's made has led me to this point. She says that, and that's true to life. Like I've been saying, every choice that we make is a choice to keep the current system or a choice to change it. But every choice counts, just like a vote. Voting season is not the only time we can change it. It happens in our everyday lives. This part makes me think of the saying being thrown to the wolves, and how people use that as a negative. But like I said before, if you think about the meaning of wolves, it's like coming to the realization that community is what we need, not being torn apart by each other, not being the lone wolves that we all seem to be right now, and coming together rather than like a pride of lions and killing each other to be the top big cat in a pride of lions. And when the truth finally comes out, those in power are afraid, like they are in this scene, because the wolves have come together. Society has come together and said, no, we're not doing it your way anymore because it's not working. We need balance. And the idea that the full werewolves, if you will, are coming to help. It's like I said, the past helping push things forward. It's information helping push things forward. So instead of thinking that society is like being thrown to the wolves, why not take that meaning back and say being thrown to the wolves in a positive way? That positive way meaning that I was thrown to the wolves, and I know this is a little cringy, but I came back leading the pack, and showing people that if we just come together, we have more power than those in power will ever have, because they serve us, not the other way around. And until we realize our own power, nothing is going to change. Nothing changes if nothing changes. And werewolves are used to change. They live it every day. That's how we need to be. We need to live and welcome change, because if we don't, we stagnate and society suffers for it. And the only ones who benefit are those in power. But this could also mean finding found family that will defend you with everything they've got. And that could be an online community, that could also be people in real life, that could be anything, but it's something to keep in mind. This right here is when we reveal the tone deafness, the ignorance, and the willful, pain-causing things that people keep saying about other people, simply trying to live their lives. This is what happens when we finally shed the light on those who are actually causing the problem. Not literally, but the ones who are sucking the system dry. We have to be like what they're doing now, sword fighting, but each sword is a different truth, and you have to be the one to wield the light that's balanced instead of the one that's imbalanced in the darkness. Hence the vampire werewolf dichotomy. But this is what happens when we finally challenge that and come together. We force them to go back into their hiding holes and regroup, but we have to stand guard constantly to the possibility of what's happening now to come back. But the way to make sure that doesn't happen is to make sure that we start caring about each other and not letting anybody fall for the big lie again. And like history teaches us that certain parties, like the ones that we have now of the alt-right, they never really change. They just rebrand. They change. They change only when it benefits them. But we have to be okay with constant change. That's how we make sure this doesn't happen again. We have to be okay with new information. We can't keep looking to the past and keeping it there. We can't keep ourselves in the past constantly. It's good to visit it momentarily so that we can learn from it, of course, but we can't stay in the past. This is what happens when we stay in the past, metaphorically speaking, but also literally speaking. Because the chains that you tried to put on other people end up being the chains that are put around you, just like this, just like that part, where Victor is trying to escape and not be killed, but the chains that he liked to put on other people is literally wrapping him now. Something to think about. Moving on. the ending here where Lucian says, no, this is just the beginning, when the other Lycans say that it's finished as far as the fight at the end, to me that signifies that the work is never done, whether that's inside yourself or outside of ourselves, through society or family, friends, and all of that. The work is always moving at some point. It never stops, and if it stops, it goes backward. It's like going to the gym and then getting really fit and then stopping and then gaining all that fat and stuff back when you did all that work, and then you have to do all that work again, because it lowers your vibration for one, and it makes you think lower of yourself. Even in small ways, it goes up and down. At least that's how I've experienced it. There have been high times and low times for me, as there have been for probably other people too. But it's more subtle than that. It's more subtle than the emotions that we feel about ourselves and society. It's more of like subtle in the way that you think, rather than what you say about yourself or what you think about yourself. It's the rationalizations that you make. It's the second chances that you give. It depends on all of that, if that makes sense, in order to make a better life for yourself and to think of yourself in a higher way. Not that you're above anyone, because that's never the case. But what I'm talking about is to hold yourself to a higher standard for yourself. The only competition that you should be worried about is the competition between the you that you were yesterday with the you that you are today, and making sure that that lines up with the you that you want to be in the future. But not only that, when it comes to political things, like I've been saying the entire video, the work never stops to defend what's right and true for everyone. Because what ultimately supports the few supports the many, in my opinion. I don't know if that's an actual saying, but it sounds like it is. And if it is, somebody please let me know. But it's just as important to continue the work, no matter what it is, to continue the work that you put in, no matter what it is, so that the future can be the way that you want it to be, like I said. And you've got to be extremely true to yourself, just like he's standing in the light here, and how the light affects the vampires, obviously, because they're vampires. But if we're going with the metaphor here, it's important to remember that the light will always provide for you rather than the darkness, because the darkness is only ever going to make you feel like you have to lash out, or you have to lie, or you have to do deals in the dark or whatever. It hides a lot, and it doesn't allow you to have growth, but only when it's convenient for you. When changed isn't necessarily always going to be convenient. It's like when you lose a pet, or if you find out that your significant other cheated on you or something like that. That's still change. It's just a change that people don't associate with the word change, at least not up front, so to speak. And considering that what he has in his hand is a type of key to unlock something, it could also be a key to destiny. It could also be a key for knowledge. It could also be a key of the past, of always knowing that we can always harness the past for the greater good of all for the future. But whoever holds it decides what that future is. So whoever we give the keys of power to can affect the future of everyone, just like it is now and always has been. I really hope this is helping somebody out there have more of a narrative focus on how life is working, and maybe this has woken somebody up to something, some sort of truth. But I really do hope this work is going to be helping somebody out there. Not even just this video, but the other ones too, and the ever-evolving style that these are going to be in. And like even his clothes, I feel like, is a form of protection, because black is protection and brown is more associated with the earth, with his hair, and the tying portions of it that are like tying up the sleeves or like his pants or whatever. It's almost like it's pretty much a style choice, obviously, by the costumers, I think, because he's sewing the wounds from the past through the actions of what he did, which was sewing the wounds of being forced to be less than human and forced to work, and getting rid of those who caused the wounds, if that makes sense. But yeah, I think that's really cool. And that's pretty much the end of it, because after this, it's the credits. So yeah. So that was part 2 of the Underworld Rise of the Lycans breakdown. I hope you enjoyed it, because I certainly did. I really hope that helped kind of open people's eyes to the fact of what's going on and how to fix it and all that. Of course, this is just my opinion, and I feel that the evidence speaks for itself, but I would like to hear what y'all think about it, especially if you have anything to add. I think that would be a great discussion to start, but feel free to share the videos with anybody who you think might like it or might take anything from it as well, because, you know. But with that being said, just to kind of reiterate, the baseline of what I'm talking about here is the world is created as far as our reality, not necessarily like a magical way, but depending on the status quo as far as like what you personally believe life is like, that will be what you perceive in life. And so that perception affects other people in the way that you treat them as well as yourself. Because if you think that the world is cruel and that homeless people are a nuisance or something like that, because unfortunately there are people that think that, which is asinine in my opinion. But with my example, if you go around thinking that life is unfair, you then stop caring about people. You start to blame your problems on other people and then say, oh, well, that's not my problem, blah, 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 blah. And when you start projecting that onto other people, it affects how they think about themselves because they think they're the problem at that point. If they don't know what projection means or how to see that, that's what I'm talking about. Even if it is their problem, you can still be a good person. That's free. That's what I'm saying. At least the base level of what I'm saying. But with that being said, the most important thing that you can do to change your world as well as the world at large over time is to, like I said at the end of every video, keep your mind and your heart open. Peace. And there's a reason I say that. And it's funny because it was an intuitive thing that I picked as my outro statement. And I know why now. Because there's a connection between your mind and your heart that you have to make in order to change who and how you think. You have to make a connection with loving yourself first before you can love anything else or anyone else. So like I said, just keep your mind and your heart open to new information, new people, new cultures, whatever. But the more you keep your mind open to things, the more that your heart is able to hold in regards to caring for other people, seeing the things that people go through and wishing you could help in whatever way that you can. So just something to keep in mind moving forward. And with that being said, keep your mind and your heart open. Peace.